Thanks very much, Carol Masser. Now, before Washington State legalized recreational cannabis use, but the medical marijuana, that's been legal since 1998. Now, despite being legal in 23 states across the country, federal restrictions have limited scientific testing and the regulation for medical marijuana. Well, maybe some people in the state of Washington were craving a few cupcakes. That's because the sale of marijuana for recreational purposes started today. Washington is the second state after Colorado to allow people to buy marijuana without a doctor's prescription. Medical marijuana, on the other hand, has been legal in Washington since 1998. Joining me now after that introduction is Thoma Kikis. He is the co-founder of Kannalife Sciences. He's been working with the FDA to help develop, standardize, and properly regulate medical marijuana. Thanks very much, Thoma. Thanks very much for being here. We got to just sort of take a moment and explain that your company is a testing company. It's you're not making cannabis, you're not growing cannabis, you're not selling cannabis.
We are, actually what we're doing is we're a research and development company, and we've been focused on this for the last 5 years. Ultimately, my background, I'm not a scientist. My background's not in science. My background's in design, film, and that's why I've got this Chief Visionary Officer title. Ultimately, I was very impassioned because I had a cousin who died of a brain tumor who was a cancer researcher. And I had suggested he use cannabis, and he just didn't want to do it because he didn't believe that cannabis was tested and it had enough support. So, and there was also a stigma behind it. But he ultimately understood that this was something that was going to need a lot of time. So what I did was I got together with my business partner, Dean Pitcanis, and Dean had pharmaceutical experience and background. And I explained to him what I saw in California about this new industry that was boiling up. And being entrepreneurs, we said, okay, let's go after this marketplace. And Dean said, if we want to get into this the right way, we need to standardize, and we need to take it from a pharmaceutical approach. So that's what we did.
Is that because it's been a free-for-all with the supplies coming from a variety of different places, and there's
nobody knows? Yeah.
There's no way to really regularize the content of whatever the chemical is that is necessary, and then also being able to grade it for, at least at this point, it's going to be retail consumption.
I'll give you an example.
Right?
Maureen Dowd wrote a piece in the Times recently where she took a whole candy bar and she had a psychedelic episode. There was
why she ate it.
She ate it. There was no dosage regulation on it. I mean, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about testing. We're talking about dosage. Everything that we do is pharmaceutical-based. So we have a great R&D team.
So does that mean ultimately you want some kind of label like they have on liquor bottles,
Absolutely.
on wine, that says, don't operate heavy machinery while you're under the influence of...
That, we want to know exactly what's in it. There's 85 known cannabinoids in cannabis. And we are... my partner and I actually went after a U.S. government patent called Cannabinoids as Antioxidants and Neuropathix, and we are the exclusive license holders of that patent. It's the 507 patent. It's kind of getting a lot of traction now in the news. And one thing that we've focused on is, obviously FDA drug development, looking at two different diseases that involve the brain, hepatic encephalopathy and chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is a brain disease that is suffered by a lot of football players, soccer players. So we're trying to do a lot of things that involve the brain. Now, how do you do that? Well, you do that with standardized approaches. We were very, very involved in New York State's bill being passed. We work with regulators here in New York State.
Well, Governor Cuomo, the state of New York, just signed the bill to legalize this. I think it's about 18 months away. Just stay with me, Thoma, because I want to bring into the conversation a gentleman that is dealing with some changes in the law in Washington State right now. Joining us via telephone is one of the lucky few who... he has a store called Top Shelf Cannabis. He was able to secure a license in Bellingham, Washington. That's north of Seattle. Tom Beckley is the co-owner of Top Shelf Cannabis. Tom, I wonder if you can just describe what was your day like today so far?
Oh, man, last night I didn't sleep at all, not a wink. I woke up to a line around the corner of the building, which is about 100 feet by 80 feet, and about 8 news people out here wanting to talk to everybody, and they wanted to see the truck come in with all the product, and it was crazy.
Hey, Tom, what about the idea that you've got to standardize or regulate the actual contents just as you would do for any kind of food or drink? Is that something you'd like to see?
You know, I like what they've done here, where it's basically, you know, anybody over 21 can get the product. I think that they should regulate, like the man on your station said about the edibles, and so you make sure what's in them. There has been some issues with that, so I think there should be some regulation.
Tom, how do you make sure that the supplies you get are what you think you're purchasing?
They all have to be marked, and they all go into a central testing agency, and then they have to be sealed in containers and then shipped.
Tom, what kind of crowd do you have now? I mean, can you give us some idea of how business has been going today?
Oh, yeah, we've probably had close to 500 or 600 people, and it's 2 o'clock, I guess. I'm not even sure what time it is right now.
Tom, how did you come to be the co-owner of Top Shelf Cannabis? How did you get the license?
Actually, I am the owner. I have 2 financial backers that helped me get it started. I basically just one day on a whim, when they said that you could file the license out, I just walked in and said, you know, why not me? Let me try this, right? And then a few months later, I got drawn in the lottery. And then I approached one of my guys and said, hey, what do you think about this? And that's how it got started.
Now, Tom, as you heard, Tom, he's counting on state officials to provide the product, so to speak.
Sure.
Is that an area that you would be working in?
We would be working in a really scrutinized area of testing, where there's, like I said, there's 85 known cannabinoids. There's also other elements in cannabis, other compounds called terpenoids. So there's all these chemicals. So we want to test huge.
So where are you now in terms of all this testing? In other words, if someone came to you and said, all right, I want you to do what you say you can do, what kind of process, what would happen?
We would have to understand the specific state that's in and the regulations of each state, and then.
So if Tom came to you and said he'd like you to, he'd like to come to you and he'd like you to verify that whatever the marijuana or the cannabis that he's purchasing is of a certain quality, a certain regular statutory rulemaking, that's something that you would.
In the state of Washington, we'd probably be able to do that in about a month.
In about a month?
Yeah. In Colorado, we can do that.
Is that expensive to do?
It is expensive. It's expensive for us to do as a startup cost, but for the long term, it's going to be built into the price of different products. And I think what New York State, for example, is doing is great. There's metered dosing. You know, Governor Cuomo has some really interesting concerns. And I think New York is doing it the right way. It's a really good start. I think the bill is going to improve, or the regulations are going to improve, but I think it's one of the most toughest bills. And it's not like California at all.
Tom Beckley, last point to you. If sales continue at this brisk pace, are you going to open another store?
Actually, we have plans to open 2 more stores in different locations, and also we would be in the market for talking with other people and getting their business up and going.
Well, I want to thank you very much. Best to you, Tom Beckley of Top Shelf Cannabis. My thanks also to Thoma Kikis. He is the co-founder of Kannalife Sciences. Now, coming up, technology takes